You guys are wonderful. That was like the most silent, immediately. I didn't even have to say a word, so thank you for that. It is my pleasure to introduce Nikki Payne. Nikki is from the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, fondly known as SEWRPC. And she's going to tell you all about SEWRPC, but I get to tell you about Nikki. So evidently I met Nikki about 9 years ago, and we had to figure out how we met, and it's because she does everything. So while she works at SEWRPC, she's also involved with a bunch of other stuff. And one of the things she said I had to tell you was that she's involved with breast cancer awareness. She was integral in Relay for Life. She does some stuff for breast cancer. She does some stuff for the NAACP. So seriously, she's involved in everything. If you haven't ever seen her before, it's your fault. So it is my pleasure to introduce Nikki Payne.
That's fun.
Wow, it's kind of hard to follow up on an introduction like that. But it is a pleasure to see all of you. I will say we were laughing a minute ago that the last time I was with your group was when we were at Victoria's, so that had to be a long, long time ago. So it's about time that I brought you up to speed with what's going on in SEWRPC. I'm seeing some new faces, so I am going to take a moment just to kind of introduce who SEWRPC is. We're the official area-wide planning agency for Southeast Wisconsin. So we cover the 7 counties. So Walworth County, Kenosha, Racine, Ozaukee, Washington, Waukesha, and Milwaukee. So with all of those 7 counties, we serve as an advisory organization, helping in the areas of transportation, land use, and the environment. So when you're looking at the infrastructures of those things. Now that doesn't sound as exciting as I know you feel it yet. But I'm going to take you to some of the projects that we work on. I'm just going to give you a couple of information about us as PIO, the Public Involvement and Outreach. We do our outreach, we do our public involvement, we do our education, we do our environmental justice, and I'm going to just kind of tell you a little bit about that, and then I'll jump into the projects that we work on. And I've been told I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to keep it to that 10, I promise. With our outreach, we're building awareness, which is, of course, what I'm supposed to do. That's why I get involved in so many things. Right here, you'll actually see Ben McKay. The guy that's sitting behind the table. He was with the CABA event, and he was specifically talking about housing. So just kind of talking a little bit about how we do our outreach. Very different programs, some of them at the Kenosha Expo, as we talked about earlier, that many of you were there. And I know that you have a booth every year. We've done the Golden Shovel, as we're doing on the transportation side. We've been at Fond du Lac with their food market. So there are all sorts of places that we make sure that we're a part of so that people can understand what we do. As you look at the Kids Zone, the African American Chamber, that was the Waukesha event. All of this is related to our public involvement, where we target key populations to increase the knowledge of what SEWRPC is doing. So we have our 9 community partners, which I am highlighting right here. One of them within our area would be the Urban League of Racine and Kenosha. So when you ever see some of their announcements of things that are going on, a lot of times we are kind of tag teaming with them. And when I mentioned the regional food system plan, they're one of our partners for that. So this will be the area that we're hoping that you'll come in and participate in some of that, our conversations. As far as education, we are trying to make sure that we are helping our students, whether they are children of color, whether they are female, male, but we are making sure that we are finding the kids that maybe are not as used to engineering careers or urban planning or things like that. We educate them about what we do. And yesterday was a perfect example. I was at Mitchell Elementary School with the Mitchell Elementary School in Racine with the girls STEM program. So we had about 50, it was a class just of girls, about 15 of them, and we started talking about the floodplain. They are actually working on a project where they are building a town, so they needed to talk about how do you build a town, what needs to be there. So as we talked about the floodplain, which I know you guys are familiar with, and the flooding that happens in Southeast Wisconsin, it was a perfect opportunity to do that partnership and let them kind of think of something else they might be able to do as far as careers. But this kind of references some of the different programs that we're working with across the 7 counties. UW Extension, Racing Unified, Kenosha Unified, the academies, and of course MPS, one of the largest school systems. So we are as involved as we possibly can be. And if you look at the, yeah, it's kind of blurry. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
But the picture that's right here at the bottom actually shows the floodplain model. So it's showing the different levels. And we're like the water with over. I know it's really blurry. I'm sorry.
No, it's hard.
We also work in the environmental justice arena. So we're promoting the consideration of environmental justice principles throughout the whole planning process. We actually have taken on our environmental justice task force, and that is represented of all 7 counties. The larger counties get a little more votes, so they'll have 2 people that are there, and then we have like an at-large person, but we make sure that it is very diverse as far as race, color, people with disabilities, all types. So as we work on our plans, we're making sure that we are including all in whatever plans are made for our 7 counties. And here's another picture of our environmental justice task force. We meet quarterly, and I will say this, if you're ever interested in kind of finding out what's going on as far as our community, this is a great way of doing that. It's joining one of, and we're doing all of our calls virtually right now. So it's a quarterly call, great way to find out what's going on with SEWRPC. So how do we function? We plan, we do lots of planning, and attend public meetings. We engage members of specific populations. We participate in local and government conferences and expos. We engage with our young people, and then we also serve as an internal division that helps us within. I mean, all of us work in different, or have worked in different places where you kind of work in silos. We're kind of that liaison, even internally. So making sure that people communicate well. So now we get to the gusto. What are we doing in Kenosha County? So I'm going to be talking about the regional fluoride study, the South Pike River Restoration Plan, the regional food system plan, and the last time I talked to you guys was about Vision 2050. We've actually had an update since the last time that I talked to you, so I'll highlight a little bit of what happened with the update. So, as we talk about the fluoride study, we live in Wisconsin, right? What do we get in Wisconsin all the time, even today with this beautiful rain?
Snow.
Snow. And with that snow, we have to make sure that our streets are safe, our sidewalks are safe, because no one wants to be sued. But as we are putting all that salt, that wonderful fluoride out on the pavement, it's being washed away. And as it's washed away, it is getting into our lakes, our streams, and even into our soil. So salt does not break down. So we're having issues now as far as plant life, animal life that is within our waterways, and even, like I said, about the soil. So with that, we have between 2018 and 2019 and 2021, for 2 years we did a study. And we looked at 37 streams and lakes across the 7 counties, and we tested them regularly. Right now, we're working on all of the data from that and putting together a plan of what we can do to help our community, whether it be using brining options, whether it's beet juice. And beet juice actually brings its own problems because it has so much sugar with it, that you have other vegetation that grows. So we're trying to look at the best plan to make sure that we have the best community that we can in the future. And since it's a little blurry, I had a tiny video to just kind of talk a little bit about salt and how much we use, but I'm going to skip that part because we can't really see it. Or maybe I'm not skipping that part.
You can see it.
You can see it? Okay.
The concentration will decrease. And so for us to lower the concentration of salt
Yeah,
Continue to keep your sidewalks clear in winter. Just manually remove as much snow and ice as you can.
Put the microphone down.
Before you think about applying salt. Using salt on top of snow just creates ice or slush, which you'll have to clean up later. Another challenge is clearing snow during a snowfall or snowstorm. When people walk on the sidewalks, the snow can become compacted and is harder to remove. The trick is to start mechanical snow removal early, right when it starts snowing. Then work all through the storm. Clearing snow throughout the storm will stop snow from compacting. Temperatures usually drop after a storm, and sidewalks can become so cold that salt cannot work properly. Using more salt when it is cold isn't going to work. If you need to clear compacted snow or ice, use an ice chisel or an ice scraper.
So often, if we get out early, you roll it in the ice. That takes care of a lot of the problem. Obviously, salt is necessary in certain circumstances, you know, when it's really icy out. But a little salt goes a long way.
So, how much salt should you use? Here's a simple way to look at it. A coffee mug of salt is enough to treat an entire 20-foot driveway, or 10 sidewalk squares. So if your area is about 5 sidewalk squares, use a half a coffee cup.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
If it is more like 20 sidewalk squares, use 2 coffee cups of salt. If you can't estimate the size of a certain space, make sure that you are spreading the salt so that there are no overlapping pieces. The pieces should be no more than 3 inches apart. You rarely need the salt spread more densely than this. A little salt goes a long way, so you only need to reapply in special circumstances, such as when snow is continually melting and refreezing. Other weather conditions will affect how and when you apply salt. If it's a warm day and the sidewalk or steps look wet, you don't need to apply salt because the sun is doing the melting. If it is an average winter day, salt will work fine to melt ice. But on a very cold, below 0 day, salt may not work. To decide what salt to use, you need to consider the temperature of the air and the temperature of the pavement. Sodium chloride or rock salt works for an average day, but will not melt the ice if it is below 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Magnesium or calcium chloride works at colder temperatures, but won't work below -5 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are using a blended de-icer, you will need to read the bag for application instructions. Wisconsin Saltwise provides an easy-to-use application calculator that allows you to enter the pavement temperature and the type of salt you are using. Then it'll tell you how much to use. Make sure to keep the salt fresh and spreadable. Store it in a tightly covered container because many de-icers attract moisture and turn into a solid lump if we keep them uncovered. If you have applied too much salt or if you spilled some, take a minute and sweep it up and reapply it to a different slippery area.
This problem of chloride pollution into water is really at this nexus of trying to maintain public safety.
So I'm going to stop it right there. And hopefully you learned a little bit about how much you should use as far as salt. If not, I'll make sure that I share the link so that you can actually see the video again.
Get rid of that thing.
But I want to make sure that I get all of the wonderful information that I want to share with you guys. And it's not going off of the slide. We'll make it work. Gotta love technology and learning how to deal with it. So, the other thing that I'd like to bring to your attention is the South Pike Restoration Fund that has happened. The Army Corps of Engineers actually offered some money, a lot of money, and Kenosha County actually agreed to it and including it in the budget. So this is actually at the signing where we have received the money. There was a lot of work that was done prior to this, and SEWRPC was one of the groups that actually started some of that initial part. But we worked with Root Pipe Wind, who did a lot of the other work and behind the scenes work. So we partner with a lot of different organizations as we work through our different programs and projects. The next one that I wanted to mention was our Regional Food System Plan for Southeast Wisconsin. We just experienced this 2-year event of COVID. And during COVID, we realized that there were a lot of problems that happened with food distribution. that we never had to think about before. So that was one of the projects that we've taken on. We're about six to 8 months into it. With this program, we're looking at the best way, starting with farming, going all the way through the process, whether it's food distribution, whether it's getting it to the restaurants, whether it's food waste, food deserts. We're working through all of this to see what we can do to make a better system within Southeast Wisconsin. So at this point, we are working on the first 4 chapters. Hoping with and that came from, as I mentioned before, we do a lot of engagement with the community. So with that, we have meetings, we ask people to fill out surveys, as I mentioned, we go to some of the farmers markets, we might have surveys there. So there are lots of ways to engage, whether it's with one of our community partners or with us one-on-one. We should be doing the second part of this survey, the second part of this study rather, with the survey in late summer. So I'm hoping that you guys will participate with that to get a little bit of feedback. And I'm also looking at my time, so I'm gonna keep moving. The last thing that I wanted to mention was Vision 2050. As I said, we are an advisory organization, governmental organization that deals with transportation and land use. The federal government requires that every regional planning commission have a plan at least 20 years out. That's why you're hearing Vision 2050. With that 20-year out plan, we have to update it every 4 years. So we just went through the update, and that's what I was mentioning before. With that, we look at progressive ways that we can look about transportation within our regional area. Also, with housing, all sorts of things like that, and I'm trying to make sure that I stay on our time. So we also did a big thing about looking at equity. So when we were going through this program, or this project, we also looked at our sister cities, our peer cities that have about the same type of population, and compared what we have and what they don't have, or what they have and we don't have. We are one of 2 cities within our same size that do not have public transportation as far as a subway system or some type of mass transit. So across the country, we are one of 2. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. The last thing I'm going to do is pop up I'm sorry, I should have said this part. I did leave a couple copies of our Vision 2050 updated plan on the table if any of you are interested. I left a copy of our annual report, which talks about all of our projects, which are massive. I couldn't even go through all of the different projects that we're working on. I also want to mention under transportation, we have a new program. It's not here, it's actually in Milwaukee. We've partnered with UW Milwaukee. And with that, there's a program called Flex Ride. You may have seen it on the news lately. But the idea of the program is very much like Uber, but it's low cost. So it's helping families that might not be able to afford to get from one place to the other, but it's taking them to industrial parks so that they can get jobs. And it's only $1.50.
Oh, wow.
So you get a car, you get to see who, just like with Uber, who's picking you up. They take you to the other stop. You get to go straight to your job. Wonderful opportunity. This is a test project that we're working through. We've gotten governmental money to do that. But we'll see what's going to happen over the next year or so. I'm trying to see, is there anything else that I left out there? I did leave you some flyers to talk about the food system plan. So hopefully you will engage with some of those. I've given you our social media info, and I will turn it over to questions if you have any.
I just have a statement, really. I want to thank SEWRPC. I'm with Kenosha County, and SEWRPC has been a wonderful partner all these years. Really integral, you just touched on a couple of things, but integral to a lot of the work that county government does and is doing. And thank you personally for your advocacy during the budget process on the Pike River project, which will be the largest environmental project in the history of this county. So it's going to make a significant.
Thank you. So I'll leave it and say Kenosha strong.